An organization that does not think about the various generations would risk being extinct, because some of the skill sets that you require currently do not exist amongst all of us for here. They exist amongst us.
I want us to do a little exercise today. A little mathematics. Can you please add 50 to your age now? And if possible, tell your friend the answer. You add 50 to your age, and you will see that most of us will not be part of the future.
We need to also keep that in mind, that we need to help them deal with stress and manage mental health issues, and not make it feel as if you're weak if you feel like you're struggling mentally. So I think we need to do that. The older generation would brush it off and say, what are you doing? Or there was one person who said, don't bring in the American disease here.
Who is a future-ready leader? A future-ready leader is someone who is not just prepared to handle the known, but is adept at navigating the unknown. These leaders possess a unique blend of flexibility, critical thinking, and the courage to innovate. Now, how do we cultivate these qualities within our teams and organizations? First of all, adaptability is key. The ability to pivot in response to unexpected changes and challenges is crucial. This means encouraging a mindset of continuous learning and growth. Embracing change as an opportunity for growth rather than a threat is the first step towards future readiness. I'll give you a few examples. Microsoft, under Satya Nadella's leadership, Microsoft underwent a significant cultural transformation, emphasizing a growth mindset. It shifted the company's focus towards cloud computing, AI, and other emerging technologies, encouraging experimentation and learning from failures. As you know, this pivot not only rejuvenated Microsoft's innovation engine, but also significantly increased its market share.
There are two aspects to it. One is just a question of equality and fairness, right? So everybody should have the same chances. So it's just simply that. But then also what I try to elaborate in my speech is the fact that in the future, the skills that will be more and more needed are like emotional intelligence, social intelligence, and the way how women are being raised and educated. They're actually much more able at these skills than men. So I do believe, if you give women a fair chance, they will excel. So it's all about giving them a fair chance, and then it makes sense from an organizational point of view because you want this diversity. Maybe you have someone who is very good at like the technical skills, and that's usually nowadays the men who have the technical skills, but you need people with the social skills, you need the people who hold the team together, right? And this at the moment is like very much more common among women. So try to like have that diversity, and have all the perspectives.
Yeah, we have a particular saying that women are their own enemies. Do you believe
Oh,
in that?
right.
Because, they don't want to see.
No, I don't believe in that. I think it's society that puts women into a role and wants them to become their own enemies. You see what I mean? I don't think like these are like societal norms, right? And I think also there's a lot of like public opinion that there's always this discourse, as there cannot be two women like thriving, two successful women, and there always has to be competition. I really don't see that in my professional life. I have a lot of female peers, who were like crucial for my career development, who would like even prep me for interviews, who would give me the pep talk. So all of this is possible once we all understand that we are not competing, but we are collaborating, and we can all be better and we can all do better if we work together.
Would you say we have made a lot of inroads? I mean, looking at where we are coming from as a country, I mean, you are the Switzerland ambassador to Ghana. Would you say we have made quite a lot of inroads, though there is still more room for improvement?
Right. I think yes and no. Like it depends on where you look. So when I first came to Ghana, I was really impressed because you have a lot of women, like in business, in leadership positions. You have women in media, you have women in the arts scene. So there are women out there. So and you meet women, there's never like a room just full of men. And I've seen that in other countries in West Africa, and I won't mention the names, but you don't have that in Ghana, you know. So I think you have made inroads, yes. When it comes to politics, of course, it's a bit another story, right? I mean, and there I'm just stating a fact. You can look at the rankings worldwide, and Ghana is really at the very bottom. And if you look at the recent local elections, I think there's now less than 4% female representation, like in the municipal assemblies. Like that makes me sad. So, and again, it's not the women's fault, and I think it's also not the voters. I mean, voters are very eager to vote for women. Afrobarometer tells us that, like, men and women alike are ready to vote for women, but somehow it's not happening. So, like, I guess someone has to really look into the barriers that keep women from being successful in the political sphere as well. And I guess the parties have a role to play in all of that. It has to become normal that women are leaders. And in the future, if we talk about leadership, we have like summits like this one. I want to have 50% of the participants in the room to be women. And I want all the participants in the room, when they think about leaders, that they think about women and men alike. So that's like my wish for the future. And I think it's doable. We heard from Surgeon Sam Jonah that he tried that within his companies. You know, he was really one of the advocates and promoters of like women leadership. So we just need more of these champions out there who do it, and then the change will be automatic.
There are some women, especially in our part of our world, where some women feel a little bit down on themselves because of some certain prejudice and stereotyping.
Absolutely.
What advice would you give to young ladies who lack the confidence to take up leadership roles?
You know, it's a very good question, and I always tell them, like, have confidence, but it's not that easy, right? And there's evidence on the fact that confidence is something you cannot build up on your own. You need an environment, you need peers, you need other people that lift you up, you know, that tell you you can do it. So what I would tell young ladies is, you know, try to find these people that believe in you. These can be your relatives, your parents, your siblings, your teachers. You know, it can be anyone. It can be your boss. Anyone who sees potential in you and believes in you. Believe them when they say you're good, you know, and try really to build up your own confidence, because I think that's crucial. You know, if you don't dare to apply for a position, you will never get it. So women also have to be maybe a bit less afraid of being seen as a failure, right? Because we heard this also today. Failure is a part of life, right? You know, so you fail, you try again, you improve, and again, it's very important that we are women also support each other, right? So we do what we can in order to bring other women on board, and we don't see each other as competition, but we understand that if one of us is up there, you know, eventually it will be good for many others as well.
All right, this is a big program dubbed Future Ready Leadership Summit, and the object of this program or summit is to build future leaders today. And Dr. Yao Eli Sebastian asked a very important question that deems further elaboration. So the question you asked about the succession plan, can you elaborate further, and why do you think it's so necessary?
Most often than not, individual leaders come with their personal tenets, their personal characteristics, their result-orientedness. And when they come, results come out, they churn out good results, they churn out all the things they need to churn out for the corporate goals to be achieved. However, there is always one thing they forget. Who will succeed me? Because nothing is permanent. So who will succeed me should be more of their agenda than the current results they are trying to achieve. We're talking about future readiness here. If you want your future to produce a better result than you have it today, then there is a need to have people who have their own characteristics, but also infested with positive result-orientedness from current successful leaders. So that when that is done, those who will represent us tomorrow, 50 years after now, 100 years after now, will come with better results so that we have transgenerational organization. The problem about Africa is that people die with their companies, they die with their vision, they die with their models. And when they go, we only remember the relic of their success. But their children or other people who are supposed to be trained to succeed them will be wallowing in ignorance. The reason? We do not hold hands to nurture people, to develop them, to make them have the growth mindset, such that tomorrow they will have so much result that can affect the generations that will follow us.
Yeah, that's well understood. Why do you think, is it about selfishness? I don't get it. Why do you think it's like that?
One thing about our side of the world is about people making references to good old days. People have this joy that when they leave, people should just mention their names as individuals who perform marvelously. And since they left, a vacuum has been created. We take pride in that.
So we take pride in creating vacuum.
We take pride in creating vacuum so that we will be the reference point. A very negative characteristic which people project as very positive. If we are not mindful of this thing that we project, which is very negative, no company will be transgenerational. No organization will be transgenerational. We have it in the political space. When we mention Kwame Nkrumah, everybody is applauding. But after Kwame Nkrumah, what happened next? The gap was created. In corporate entities, we've seen the Sam Jonahs, we've seen other powerful leaders. The moment they left, their companies became a pale shadow of their original state. This greed element, this ego-centered history-making process is the major challenge that we are faced with. We must be intentional about changing this. If we don't, there is no future for leadership in Africa.
Don't you think that it is the followers that are not interested in tapping into this huge knowledge base and experience, and then, with a mindset of stepping into their shoes when they are no more?
A great leader is able to tap into the egos of individuals, pamper them if even they are not interested, and imbibe in them leadership characteristics. So if people who are following you are not willing, if you are a good leader, you should be able to tap their shoulders and say, guess what? Tomorrow is in your hands. How prepared are you? Let's go through this regiment. Let's go through this knowledge space, because tomorrow you may be taking the reins. Everybody who is given such a respect, in spite of any lackadaisical mindset, will be able to think forward and to take leadership role where they deserve to do that.
Do you think when it comes to the religion, with a particular reference to Christian religion, do you think pastors are doing well in this direction? Because you see, most of the privately owned churches, kind of replacing themselves with their children. Do you see that?
In the religious space, charismatic Pentecostal church space, I want to give them an applause for this, because they are mindful of their investments and their legacy.
Okay.
And most often than not, they groom their wives, or if they have children who are forthright, even thinking in a similar light, they groom them, project them, and they become the people who succeed them. Can we replicate this in the corporate space? If we do that, industry will be 100 years, 200 years, and we'll still be applauding them. But it's a very good thing religious organizations are doing. and we need to applaud them and emulate them.
But you have the congregation also, having the negative and opposing side to it. That why should it be your son or your children? Why should it be your wife and not any other person from amongst the team of pastors or whoever?
I think there is a need to differentiate between profession and vocation.
Okay.
When people are called into ministry, it's a vocation. And it's a line in the lateral way of projecting what God has put in you or the talent that you have. You realize that somebody has a similar one, more so your wife or your child, you enhance and you push. If you are a member of the congregation and you think you have a similar characteristic, you have anointing, you have unction to start your own ministry, nobody debars you, nobody stops you. So instead of sitting in there and grumbling and complaining that the son, the wife, is taking the space, why don't you go out there and exercise the same tenacity? Learn from whoever you've learned from for so many years and execute. And let your wife and let your son or your daughter take over from you tomorrow. The model is clear. Follow what is working and replicate for yourself. Don't grumble.
I like that. I want to take you back to something that you said related to the leadership, and then you mentioned Kwame Nkrumah when they died.
Yes.
I mean, those group of Pan-Africanists, like Nkrumah himself, Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois, Marcus Garvey, George Padmore, and those, when they died, everything was off, completely off. And now Africans are struggling, all over the globe.
Yes.
To now, we are now telling our story to the world. And it seemed to me that there's something wrong. And it's our leadership. So what do you think went wrong?
Succession planning. You see, there is one thing that those leaders did not realize. They thought the end was not close because in spite of their positive tenacities, these are people who did not know that their leadership will be truncated within a shortest time by virtue of coup d'etats, by virtue of people rising against them. So, in their comfort zones, they were procrastinating in keeping people in their stead by training them to represent them when they are no more. So, a major vacuum was created. And today, here we are, only dreaming about the past, and we don't have such people showing up and impacting. We may blame external factors, but I believe that if you put a gem in a mud and wash it, the gem will shine. You may not have an Nkrumah, but if the Nkrumah tenacity is transferred to somebody with specific mind to change that person to represent us in our absence, they will also shine in spite of the challenge.
I think that tenacity, I pray that it transfers to me to be able to lead the way.
That is the deal.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you so much.
You're
I'm really
welcome.
grateful.
All right.
Yeah, hello guys, this is Jibril, and right here is Moving Creek Ambassadors Hotel. This is where the main issue happened. I mean, today it was a blast because we saw a host of about 20 or more doctors speaking on and other experienced personalities speaking on this very topic, Future Ready Leadership Summit. And so we have one of the speakers here. I want her to walk us through why was it important for Future Ready Leadership Summit. Why is the importance?
This is Nanette Tuahene here, and thank you so much for having me. The Future Ready Leadership Summit was mainly about leadership. It was not only about leadership, but how do we prepare ourselves so that our companies are sustainable through thick and thin, to weather the storms, to make sure that when things happen unexpectedly, we're prepared. And then not only that, but also to prepare our companies for takeover. Because one day youth of today are going to be the CEOs, the managing directors of tomorrow. So how do we make sure we are appealing to those youth? How do we make sure we mentor them, we equip them, we empower them to keep companies sustainable? Because we talked about, there was one gentleman we called Kumasi Boy, because that's what he called himself. He said, why have all these businesses I grew up with collapsed? And so we spoke about how do we mentor, equip, and empower youth so that businesses are sustainable and that we're relevant, because sometimes we become irrelevant because we're not staying up with the times, because we know the only constant is change. So things are constantly changing. So how do we stay ahead of that change? And how do we make sure that we keep our companies thriving through thick or thin?
Yeah, I had throughout the program succession plan. What is it about?
Succession plan is making sure we don't start from scratch, whether it's your personal life. You know, a lot of us, every generation, we start from scratch. Instead of taking what our parents left and building on those, we start from scratch. So same thing professionally. As a professional, we shouldn't start from scratch because we have people who've gone before us. So a succession plan is making sure we share our wisdom with the youth, we share our experience with the youth, we share our knowledge with the youth so that they don't have to start from scratch, so that we give them a hand up so they can do much better than we did. And so that's a succession plan. So at the time or in the event that a key leader is not around, the next generation can take over just like that. That's what a succession plan is.
Okay, so in essence, are we kind of building a generational legacy or
Yes,
wealth?
Absolutely. So generational legacy meaning the sustainability of the company. So when the owner passes away, when the owner gets disabled, when something happens where they can no longer run the business, there's an easy transition, like there's a baton handed off smoothly and there's no interruption of business. So that's the succession.
So what is the future like?
What's the future like? The future is what we make it actually. So what we do is we prepare for the best and we prepare for the worst. The way I see the future as a place where the older generation and the younger generation bridge the gap. They start to learn about each other, understand each other, figure out what works, what doesn't work, so that as we work together, the companies keep thriving, like ongoing. There's no break in anything, no matter what happens to that older generation. So that's what the future
here is the
looks
case.
like.
We have older generations who have passed their worthwhile time in office. They've spent the 60 years of their youthful age or their workable time within office. They are done, but are not ready to hand over the baton. What happens? Because we have most of them that are still sitting and a new appointment have been made and posted, but they are still occupying those positions, and some are even getting re-engagement after the active service. What do we do?
That's what Dr. Donko, who works with ECOWAS, he talked about that. He specifically said we can no longer hold on to power forever. We must share that power if we want our companies to continue to thrive and to do more than just survive. So they covered that in this summit. There are people who want to hold on to power and they don't want to let it go. But he stated if you want your company to survive, you must share your wisdom, share your knowledge, share your experience with those behind you and empower them. Start putting them in positions now so that they know how to manage a company by the time you're ready to move on.
Yeah, I think that is where there's a little challenge at, empowering those below you. You understand? Because there's this belief that you empower them, they now know, what you know, and then the degree of, respect and authority that they enjoy will seem to diminish. What do you say about that? And for that matter, they don't want to
relinquish power.
Yeah.
When you're short-sighted, that's what happens. But when you're long-sighted and you really care about the company and the product and service you offer to the customers, and you really care about the customers, then you have a long-term thinking where you feel like, you know what, let me empower these youth, because as I empower them, I grow. Because as I hold you accountable as a leader, I grow as a leader. It just depends on the mindset. That's really what we were talking about at this summit, mindset. Do you have a growth mindset or do you have a fixed mindset? A growth mindset always knows there's always opportunity no matter who I empower. There's no shortage of opportunity when you know how to empower people. A fixed mindset says I have to hold on to everything because I don't know how long it will last, and I don't want to let go because I might lose out. There's not enough, right? So if you have a fixed mindset, that's what you'll do. But if you have a growth mindset, you'll make sure you do everything you can to empower the next generation for the sake of the country in general.
Yeah, and Riley, so I want you to view, I'm taking you to an area where Dr.Sam Jonah spoke about the fact that, a company that he had to set up even in the UK, he had to ensure that there were a high number of female participation at the board, about 40-45%, which was a good thing. How does that make you feel as a woman?
As a woman, he made a great point. He asked, how many of you will say your mother is the most influential person in your life? And more than half of the room raised their hand. He said, so why wouldn't we hire women if we know women are the best managers, the most influential people in our lives? And that's where he came from. It wasn't because he was trying to appease any kind of initiative or anything. It's just what he's experienced and what made sense. If you know your mother is the most influential person in your life, then you know women have the competence to run your business, to be part of your business.
Thank you, Nanette.
Yes, my pleasure, my pleasure.
This year I've attended 3 conferences, but from 2021 I've attended more than 20 international and national conferences, both on the private sector and on governmental session, because as a private man, whatever you do, sometimes you need the regulatory bodies, the ministry of this, ministry of that, register of companies, and the tax companies. So sometimes you need to know what the government is thinking, what regulations the government is bringing. That is affecting either the business a positive way or negative way. So when the government is doing something and it's open to the public, I attend. When the private people are also doing it, I attend. In order to have a balanced knowledge.